So the new Xbox Series S released today, and I think it's a really good deal, especially with the $299 price tag. It just makes it unbeatable, especially compared to Sony. And by the way, just to mention, of course, this is a next gen console. This is not the last gen console. This is of course a next gen console. This will be the budget version of the new Xbox Series X, and in the pictures, this is about 3 to 4 times smaller than the Xbox Series X. Of course, we cannot see the in real life comparison. However, news sources and different gaming sites could show the virtual comparison, which really seems that either the Xbox Series X is really big or the Xbox Series S is really small. Of course, I think in my opinion that the Xbox Series X is very big, and I think the Xbox Series S is just the same size as the Xbox One, but it's just a bit smaller, maybe like the Xbox One S. So as I was recording this video, I found out that they had launched a Game Pass which only costs $25. This is essentially an all-access Game Pass with Xbox Live Gold and a bunch of unreleased next-gen games. This is basically everything in just one complete $25 package. And just looking at the specs here, it is an all-digital gaming console, so basically no disc tray, no anything like that. And that's why they probably have this Game Pass thing, and they also have ray tracing, they have variable rate shading, variable refresh rate, 2K 120 frames per second gameplay, and I believe it's 4K 60 frames per second gameplay. I mean, this is just looking really good for Xbox right here. I mean, I'm seeing people who are essentially PlayStation fanboys who want to buy the Xbox instead of the PS5. These things will just add up more and more with my points as I go on, but yeah, anyways, back to the video. Now, before we move on, let me give you guys a perspective on this. Do you know Nvidia? Of course, everybody knows Nvidia. They make the best graphics cards out there. Now, let's just take the GTX 1660 Ti. That is around $269. Take that and put it with the Xbox Series S. Now compare these two, a graphics card with an entire console. Look at the difference. Look how cheap this is. Imagine you just getting your PC and stuff and you realize that the Xbox Series S is the same price as your processor. Of course, everybody won't have the same processor, but then you get a good idea what I'm saying. Some people might have the 2080, the 2070, which is way higher than the Xbox Series S, so it's even worse. But I know that a PC is more different from a console. I understand that. I just want to give you guys some perspective on this specific situation. Now, if you're talking about the Xbox Series X and the PS5 in general, the Xbox Series X is it's going to be much more cheaper because the predictions of the PS5 seem to be high around the $600 mark, maybe $650. It can be anything. The price hasn't released, and normally when companies don't release prices, that is an indicator to show that the prices of these products will be expensive, to say the least. Now, in terms of the Xbox Series X and the PS5, the Xbox Series X seems to have the edge over here in terms of the specs, but not really in terms of the exclusive games. Halo Infinite is by far one of the best Xbox exclusive games out there. We're not sure if it's going to be good or not. Like Halo Reach, we're not too sure about that, but it's going to be the best one. And also the PS4 has some really good exclusive games as well. Now, let's put all that on the side. Let's say the Xbox will lose this so-called console war. They will lose with the PS5. Then they have this Xbox Series S, which is just so much more cheaper. Now, when I said they would lose, I mean in terms of the technical aspects, the software aspects, all of that stuff, and where the price just doesn't really matter. Now, even if that happens, even if they lose this so-called war, they still have the Xbox Series S, which is so much more cheaper, and most importantly, it's a next-gen console, which is so much better. Again, a very good Christmas present or a very good birthday present because it's so much cheaper and it's part of the next generation consoles. This just might really give the edge for Xbox to break this stigma of them being terrible at consoles and stuff. Remember the Xbox One launch? It was just terrible, and even though they fixed up everything, the damage was already done. To be honest, I must say the new generation of kids around here do not understand how good the Xbox 360 was. Also, the fact that most of the Xbox One problems were already fixed, they're already done. It was basically the same thing, except that the Xbox One had a much better deal. It was a much better price, and people were just sleeping on it. They were just jumping on the hate bandwagon and stuff. It was just terrible, and hopefully they can see that the Xbox just isn't like that. The fact that it's $299 will be able to show these people that the Xbox just isn't that bad, except if they actually buy the PS5 instead of the Xbox Series S, because probably they have more money and stuff. It all comes down to whether whether people have the money or not. The PlayStation kids will be like, hey, I don't have the money for this. Where am I supposed to get the money for this? And the only alternative for this is that they will have to buy the Xbox Series S. Now, I'm assuming they already have the PlayStation 4, and they of course won't buy the PlayStation 4 because it's the last generation console, and the only way to come back is to buy the Xbox Series S. And there's no escaping. For example, there's no way to buy a cheaper PS5 because it's a very brand new console, and people with the last generation consoles will of course be felt left out. And yes, for some games you might be able to play with the PS4, however, it's not going to be the best experience. You're not going to get the new gen experience, the features, etc. You know what I'm talking about. You're essentially just going to be felt left out, and that's just the main problem with this. And especially with this new generation thing, you can't just buy a used PS5 or anything. It's a new console, and of course because of this, because of the less people that are going to buy the PS5, the price of these things are just not going to go as low as they used to with the PS4. Why? Well, let's just teach you guys some basic economics here. Well, if the demand of something is much lower or just lower than the amount of output or the amount of supply that is had, then the price will go down and down. And also for just a general value of something, for example, Samsung phones and Apple phones, even if a Samsung phone has much better specs than an iPhone, it still will have a much lower resale price compared to an iPhone. I just wanted to add that in there, but in this case, it's not actually the case. Now, in around 2015, they both had the same price, but it was the abundance of the PS4 that made it much cheaper. The amount of PS4s sold and the amount of reselling and just second-hand PS4s in general. Now, if you look at the Xbox One S and the PS4 Slim, they both had a same starting price. The Xbox One is still more expensive. And also, I forgot to mention the countless times the Xbox just tried to decrease the price of their consoles after the launch, after they knew they weren't doing so well. And with this advantage of people buying more Xbox Series S's, this will really help the amount of people who are going to find or try to find PS5s for a much cheaper price. And even if they do, it will be nowhere as near as the Xbox Series S. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. If you do, just check out my Twitter, NanoMe145. That's like the best way to contact me. Subscribe, like this video if you liked it. And yeah, that's all for today. So see you guys later.